Thank you, Chair. I'd like to first say a few words about enrollment. As I had foreshadowed, the official numbers do indicate that we had a decline in enrollment, in headcount enrollment on most of our campuses, and I want to unpack that a little bit. It gets reported in different ways by different media. Sometimes words like edged down, sometimes spiraling down carry very different connotations. So the reality is actually pretty complex. Usually I like to sugarcoat things, but let me start with the weaknesses. The two things that I'm most concerned about are we need to up our game in recruiting local students graduating from local high schools. That's a group that needs higher education, and we need to find ways to get more of, especially our public high school graduates, into higher education. And we are the best choice for most of those who are not attending college. The incredibly hot labor market doesn't help with that, but we still need to do better. We also need to do better at getting transfers from our community colleges into our four-year universities. UHPAIA actually had an uptick in those this year, but we need to do it across the state. And again, that's an area where we're competing against the local labor markets for people who are ready to get out into the job spot. But we do have a number of bright spots that we've uncovered when we really dig in. So let me just highlight a few of them. This is the second year in a row that we have an increase in classified graduate students. That's at a combination of Manoa and Hilo, where we have graduate programs. So that's turned around now after many years of decline. At Manoa, we have an increase in international students, so we're quite happy about that. And while the overall head count is down, our entering class was over 2,000 for just the second time in the last decade. Last year was our record for the largest entering class ever. So we were a little behind it, but ahead of where we've been for 10 years. West Oahu is very pleased. They've been working on their retention rates, and they've seen improvements there. UH-Hilo has an increase in first-time freshmen, so that sweet spot of getting more local kids into college is making a difference there. And they also, as I mentioned, had an increase in incoming transfers, and that's all hard work. None of that is a coincidence. The community colleges, while the enrollment is down, they are still above the pre-recession levels, so they're still, they experienced the largest peak during the recession, adding close to 10,000 new students. That's most of what has been lost over these last years. They have more first-time new 26 to 44-year-olds, interestingly, when we look at age, than ever before, over 2,300 of them, which is a very large increase. And that's a group we've been aiming at with our returning adult program to help upskill adults for better jobs within the community. And again, that's quite intentional, looking at people who are employed, who are caregivers, and one of our flagship programs there is our online AA program, which is at capacity once again. Average age of those students is 36. So we're reaching out to students who we had not been getting to with our conventional programs. So hot off the press, the official system retention numbers will be out Monday, but we can already see there was a substantial improvement in fall-to-fall retention for most of our campuses. This is critical because every time we lose one after their freshman year, that's a student that we actively recruited, but we never get to over the finish line. Among the many increases, and I mentioned West Oahu, it looks right now like Manoa surpassed 80%, which would be the highest in its history, which is great news, and we still have to keep going. Graduation rates are up, so that works against us on our headcount enrollment. And this is pretty interesting. Vice President Young is probably somewhere in the back there, but in spite of a decreased headcount, our revenue is up. So that has to do with how many credits people are taking, what programs they're enrolled in, graduate, undergraduate, resident, non-resident, WUI, and all of these categories that impact revenue in a much more sophisticated manner than just headcount enrollment. So that's good news, but we also want to keep serving more people. Some of our priorities include leveraging early college better. Our numbers continue to go up, which is great. We think we can be more intentional by creating pathways into academic programs, so from the high school, particularly working with the academies. We want to be recruiting more actively, especially from our community colleges. We have a lot we can learn about how to deploy and market the Hawaiʻi Promise program after only 2 years in the community colleges. We're working with consultants who are helping us understand the state of the art in recruiting and enrollment management, so we don't have to make all the mistakes that have been made across the country, and creating more programs that attract students. Manoa is working on a sustainability program through interdisciplinary studies, which we know our students want to get a degree in sustainability, and we've got ideas on an online transfer center that we think we can use to help move students throughout the system. We'll be sharing more of this over time, but I wanted you to understand that just because head count enrollment did not increase as we had hoped, the Titanic is turning, lots of work is underway, and the financial picture isn't as grim as you might believe from just looking at the superficial headcount numbers. I think when Carlos talks, he's going to say something about their Open Educational Resource Program. Leeward is our leader across the system right now, and the chancellors here tend to highlight it. But we've been working on this across the system, and I wanted to show you this English composition text was written by a group of our faculty from across the system, completely free and open. This is the text for English 100. It is free online. If you want this nice paper copy, it's $6.70. That's for the cost of the paper and printing, distribution. The standard book is typically about $100, maybe $50 if you get it used. We have over 6,600 students enrolled in English 100 system-wide, so you can do that math in your head. This little project could save our students literally hundreds of thousands of dollars as we drive adoption. So the cost of education is not just the tuition and fees, it's a lot of other things like $100 textbooks that we're working at. We have been using a process called Book Sprint. I think I had mentioned it. We also did an Econ 130 textbook by a group of our faculty. This year we're doing 2 more book sprints. We focus on high enrolled courses that are part of the general education curriculum to have greatest impact. We're also looking at what are called ancillary sprints. So one of the things that textbook publishers do is they give faculty test banks, PowerPoint presentations, lecture notes. So we have our faculty working together also to provide those things also for free so that we can provide more incentives to create a more positive educational experience at little or no cost. Our goal is to have a complete suite of free textbooks, free if online, cost if paper, for the entire general education core for the University of Hawaii system. We have baked into Banner, our student information system, a flag so that students can find courses that have free textbooks. So if that's a priority for them, they can select sections based on which ones of them have free textbooks already. So it's a great program, and I think Carlos will say a little bit more about the dollar savings on this campus. I like to talk about research a bit every month. So as of this morning, we are a little over $210 million in extramural funding. That's just 4.5 months in. That's ahead of last year, which was our best year in a long time. And what is really nice about this when we drill into the data is our best years were a blip caused by us taking excellent advantage of the Stimulus Act, the ARRA, during the Obama era, during the Great Recession. This is a very organic and steady and solidly based growth in extramural funding that's spread across the UH system even at a time when, you know, we're fighting with every university in the country for research dollars. So sometimes they talk about our big awards that bring in lots of money. Today I just want to mention two that are just really interesting projects. One is a group of our researchers based in chemistry at UH Manoa was working on some computational chemistry, and they uncovered a bug in one of the core pieces of software that has been used across the country for years. They reported the bug, the guy who wrote the software thanked him, and it looks like there are about 150 published papers that are going to have to be reviewed to see if they still have the same results when they run them on the corrected software. So a really interesting piece of work. Our folks did this on the high performance computing cluster that we bought initially about 5 years ago. This was one of the advantages of the new IT building, that we could put in a high performance computing cluster. We made this investment out of institutional funds as one of our strategic research investments. It's something we talk about a lot, and it is bearing fruit in many, many ways, such as this, as well as increased dollars and increased research productivity. The second project I want to mention is whale bubble net feeding. I don't know if you watched this video, and maybe we can cue it up now. This is now our best YouTube hit ever out of our research videos. Over 240,000 viewings, and it just went online Sunday. And this is the work out of our Hawaii Institute for Marine Biology Marine Mammal Research Program at Moku'olo'e, or Coconut Island.
This is rare video of humpback whales blowing bubbles to create bubble nets to catch their prey. This unique behavior was captured by researchers from the University of Hawaii at Manoa's Marine Mammal Research Program in collaboration with the Alaska Whale Foundation and Stanford University. Even more amazing is the whale's point of view, from cameras attached to the animals coupled with aerial drone video.
So basically we have two angles, and the drone's perspective is showing us these bubble nets, if you will, and how the bubbles are starting to come to the surface, and how the animals then come up through the bubble net as they surface, while the cameras on the whales are telling us from the animal's perspective. So overlaying these two data sets is quite exciting.
The team worked with labs from Stanford University and the University of California, Santa Cruz. They used suction cup tags fitted with cameras and sensors to gain an understanding of how humpback whales feed and use bubbles to form nets around prey.
The footage is rather groundbreaking. We're observing how these animals are manipulating their prey and preparing the prey for capture. So it is allowing us to gain new insights that we haven't really been able to do before.
The video and data are providing insights into how the whales carry out bubble net formation and how often they do this to sustain and gain enough energy and weight before they migrate back down to Hawaii to breed and mate. The bubble net research is part of a larger marine mammal research program project investigating causes of a possible decline in the humpback whale numbers, including shifts in habitat use and changes to food availability linked to prey depletion and climate change.
Just a couple more items. I want to thank, and I have thanked them directly, Lance Wilhelm and Micah Kane for joining us last month from the Kamehameha Schools trustees. I want to say just a little more about our UHPAIA Partnership. This began, I think, about 5 years ago when Jack Wong and I first began as CEOs. Actually, I think when we were both interim CEOs of our organizations. I think we both thought we would be passing this off to other people. We've done a lot of work. We've had close to 100 people involved from each of our organizations, but right now our primary focus has been on Native Hawaiian student success. And our flagship program is funded by Kamehameha, and it's the Makalapua Na'au'au scholarship program. And we've really rethought our approaches of how we work together to maximize student success through to completion. This is in involve intensely studying what the student experience looks like and then correcting our support programs together. So we now co-award financial aid rather than have each of us decide what we're doing. We make 4-year commitments of financial aid, so students know if they stay on track, they will get a full financial aid package each and every year through to completion. We're leveraging the co-funding that's available through all other sources. We have a pretty intrusive, that's a good word by the way, student support system to recognize when students are having problems and interjecting interventions early to try and keep them on track. And we are baking in a culture-based cohort model that supports their Hawaiian culture and identity as they are matriculating. This program exists at all 3 of our universities. Kamehameha really wanted to focus on bachelor's degree completion. We've identified areas like challenges for families like FAFSA completion, so we're working with families on that. We do workshops and summer symposia to engage them culturally, and we have sets of holistic counseling and academic preparedness to really help the students succeed. We are already seeing amazing results, and I think that Lance or Micah mentioned this last month, but we've seen persistent rates of 89%. So you heard how happy I was at having Manoa as a whole make it to 80% just for freshman to sophomore. This is 89% consistently for as long as the program has been in existence, so far ahead of campus averages. We have students graduating on time, and because we've been so successful, we're actually able to apply some of the funds that are available to getting some of those students, 7 from Manoa and 1 from Hilo, into graduate school using the funding that we thought was only going to be available and adequate to support undergraduates. So we've got summer bridge programs going, early college pathway programs, transfer programs we're looking at for Native Hawaiian students, and we're also starting to look at teacher education programs to ensure that there are adequate teachers, particularly in the Hawaiian-focused charter schools that Kamehameha Schools supports. Lastly, let me mention that in 2 weeks we will be hosting a conference called SACNAS. I'm not going to tell you the acronym because it is no longer applicable, but it has emerged as the diversity in STEM conference for the country. We will have 4,000 or more attendees here in Hawaii. It'll be at the convention center. So it's a fabulous opportunity for us to show what we're doing in STEM education and research for and with underrepresented minorities, but also to learn from others from across the country and around the world. It's also a great opportunity for us to recruit faculty and students as well. And of course, the visitor industry always loves UH. We bring in more conferences on an annual basis than almost anyone else, as our faculty continuously strive to host their colleagues here. And we've won numerous awards for our work from the visitor industry.